Good morning, day 135, cooking down the freezer, refrigerator, and working pantry. Maybe I should rename this challenge. Maybe I should change it to day 135, very low spend challenge. What do you guys think? Should I change it to that or just leave it no spend challenge? Because there are, most days it is a no spend. But then there are days where I do buy some groceries. I buy produce and sometimes a couple things for the freezer, but not that often. Hardly ever for the freezer. But I do buy fresh produce. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Should I call it a very low spend, or should I keep it no spend? So the sun is out today, but we had a hard frost last night. And of course my beautiful pink magnolia is drooping all the blossoms. It's not looking very good. And probably by tomorrow or the day after, all the blossoms will fall off. Which is kind of sad. It had its glory day for 3 days because we had one day where it went up to almost 80 and it all popped open, and then the weather went back south again. I love it when my coffee's steaming. It's not really that hot, but after I put the creamer in, it cools it right off, makes it just to the right temperature. So anyway, today I think I'm going to try and plant some of those tomato seedlings that I started from the store-bought tomatoes, and I have so many of them. I can't possibly plant them all. So some of them I think are going to be just going to the compost, because I must have at least 50 between the different varieties that I started from the store-bought tomatoes. And they're very healthy and very sturdy, so we'll see. I just don't want to use up all that soil on the tomato seedlings. Plus that, you need a container for each one. So we'll see what I come up with. But anyway, in the meantime, I'll be back with breakfast, day 135. Good morning. Cheers. Grab a little coffee and we'll have a little chat. So I bought some, I know I was just talking about how many tomatoes I have, but I got some of these Tiny Tim tomatoes, and I got these to put into my indoor garden because they only grow to 12 inches, and it's a cherry tomato, and the tomatoes are 3/4 to an inch big, so I want to try and grow these. Now these seeds were not cheap. They were over $6, and I think you get like 45 or 50 seeds in here. But I think you can save the seeds and replant them, because it is an heirloom non-GMO tomato, so it's not a hybrid. So I want to use these in my little Ambiano garden and see what happens. I've watched a couple YouTube videos on it, and a couple people have said that that particular Tiny Tim tomato is the best to grow in hydroponically. So we'll see. It would be nice to have little tomatoes that I can grow myself, because, you know, the growing season is short here. So I want to show you all the little tomatoes that that I have. It's like, what am I going to do with all these tomatoes? And I probably could pot them up and sell them, or give them away, but it'd be a lot of work to get all those tomatoes potted up. So let me show you my tomatoes. Okay, so these are all tomatoes that I planted from a store-bought heirloom tomato. So I have all these. These are just the vine tomatoes that you can buy in the store, you know, the ones that come on a vine. So I have all these. Then I have, oh, this is another vine tomato. And all I did was take the seeds out of a store-bought tomato and stuck them in some growing medium, and I have all those. Then I have, these are yellow heirloom tomatoes. Look at all of those. I mean, there are a ton of them, and they're all very sturdy. So I gotta pick and choose and see which ones that I want to keep, because I can't possibly plant all these tomatoes. I'd run out of potting soil. So if you don't have a lot of money for seeds, like $6 and something for 50 seeds, buy yourself a couple heirloom tomatoes at a store or a market, and just stick them in some dirt. You can even just do a whole thin slice of tomato and put it in some soil. Don't plant them too deep, you know, maybe this deep. And then you can save, these are heirlooms, so you can save these seeds from year to year and continuously grow tomatoes. Now I planted all these using the double cup method, and what I did was, you can see the roots are coming out the bottom. The top cup has holes in the bottom, and then the bottom cup just holds the water. So as they get bigger, I watered them from the top in the beginning, and then now that they're bigger, I don't know, you can see all those roots in there, I'm watering from the bottom, and I'm also putting nutrients in there when they get a little bigger. So it's a very easy way to grow tomatoes, and you'll have lots and lots to give your family and friends. They'll be amazed. So my plan is to plant maybe 10 or 12 tomato plants outside. I have big buckets, and I'm going to try to do 2 tomato plants in each one. Now some of these are determinate tomatoes and some are indeterminate. And what that means is the determinate is like a bush tomato. They don't grow tall like a vine. And the indeterminate just keeps growing. It grows very tall. The indeterminate tomatoes will continue to produce tomatoes through the whole season, whereas the determinate tomatoes pretty much put out all their tomatoes at once. I mean, they do ripen at various stages, but they do their tomatoes and then they're done. The indeterminate tomatoes you want to trim, and especially if you're going to put more than one tomato in a bucket, you want to keep it to a single stalk, whereas the indeterminate tomatoes, you don't want to trim those because they'll bear fruit on all the little shoots that they put out. You do want to trim the leaves off the bottom of the tomato, and when you first plant them, you want to plant them as deep as possible. Remove the bottom leaves and put the whole stem in the dirt as much as possible, even if you only have a couple of leaf nodes at the top, because that will all develop strong roots. Now tomatoes are heavy feeders. You want to feed them at least every couple weeks. give them some Epsom salt to keep them from getting blossom end rot. And of course they like a lot of water too. So just a little lesson on tomatoes that I've learned over the years. So we'll see how my garden grows this year. So here is how my weird little lettuce is coming along. I've seen them grow from the top, but it has all these little shoots coming out. So anyway, I don't know how long it'll last, because I'm sure eventually, it's not getting any roots, but eventually this will give up the ghost, and then I'll eat it. Okay, let's go see what's for breakfast this morning. I have a lot of leftovers for breakfast and dinner. So let's see what we have. I have my casserole yet from yesterday. These are mashed potatoes. I still have some Beyond Chicken, Brussels sprouts, lettuce. I still have beets. Still have my cream veggie soup. And then I have 2 egg bites and a little bit of leftover egg from yesterday. So I'm going to have this for breakfast today. And I think I'm going to have a couple pieces of toast. And I'm going to have a blood orange. So that's a good breakfast. Hello, buddy. How you doing? All right, I will meet you at the stove. All right, here we have breakfast day 135. I have my little frittatas, muffin frittatas, my leftover eggs and potatoes from yesterday, a blood orange, that is really dark, and toast, and of course coffee. Yum. All right, I'll be back later. I was just thinking, when you don't have a lot of money, you have to do everything on the cheap. I found that to be true for most of my adult life. I mean, we've never been dirt poor. This is about the poorest I've ever been, but we were definitely not high-end middle class either. We were more in the middle somewhere. Even when I was married with kids, my ex-husband was a police officer. So, you know, they don't make a lot of money, at least they didn't back then. I have no idea what they make now, but whatever it isn't enough for the job that they have. But anyway, so I had to learn to do everything on the cheap. And then my parents, of course, came from the Depression era. They went through World War II, where they didn't have anything, and they were much poorer, actually, than what I was. So when my folks immigrated here to the States, they pretty much came here with nothing. You know, my dad got a job. He was a tool and die maker, and he made a decent living, but definitely not a high-end salary at all. So with me being an only child, you would think, oh, she's spoiled, blah, blah, but no. I had what I needed. I had everything I needed, but I didn't have everything I wanted. I mean, I had things other kids had. I had a bike and I had, Barbie dolls and things like that, but not like it is nowadays where everything is like over the top and everything is got to be high end and no. I just haven't had that my whole life. And my mother, she has been the most frugal person that I've ever known. I mean, even now at 93, she tries to fix her toilet. She goes out in her garden and does as much out there as she can. So it's what I grew up with. So for me, everything has to be done on the cheap because I just don't have the income to do things with a lot of money. I don't have that discretionary income where I can hire a landscaper or hire a cleaning lady or, I just don't have it. So I have to do everything myself. And that was never a problem when I was younger. I had the stamina. I was always very strong. I had a lot of energy. But that has changed dramatically, especially in the last 5 years. So now I'm finding it more difficult to DIY everything. So the things that I'm trying to do now are for future me. So my indoor garden that I'm setting up now is for future me. If and when I cannot garden outside anymore. But even my outside garden, I'm setting up for future me. I bought little tables and I put everything up on little stool tables so that I don't have to bend over as much. But getting the process done is taking forever because I can only do this much and then that's all I can do. But I'm going to keep working on it and keep plugging away at it until I get it done. And hopefully that will take care of the next few years once I get it all set up so that I can continue doing my gardening outside. Now this year is sort of a trial for me. If my garden doesn't produce enough, and there's another fine line there. I want enough produce that I can feed myself, have some extra to give my family, but I don't want so much produce that I have to spend most of the late summer, early fall doing canning because I just don't want to do that. I canned some when I was younger, but now I just don't want to bother with it. Not saying that I wouldn't can anything, but I don't want that whole process taking place in my kitchen because it makes a big mess. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm in transition. I'm trying to figure out what's too much, what's not enough. I'd be happy just to have a garden to feed myself all summer and maybe have a little bit extra. But as you all know, I'm cutting back on my freezer inventory. And one of the reasons I've done that is because I don't want to worry about my food should the electricity go out, which has happened before, actually a few times where the electricity went out for a couple days and I had to stress about what I was going to do with all my freezer food. I don't want that stress anymore. So I'm sure you would say, well, yeah, but canning is going to help you with that particular problem, and that's true. But right now, the vegetables and things that I can still buy that are already done, it's cheap enough that I can afford it, and I don't have to prep all those things myself. So hopefully I will be able to get enough out of my garden and my freezer maybe will be a little less full so that I can get through several months of what I do have in my freezer and just slowly stock up some things that I like. Now in my freezer, I have a lot of tofu. I still have a lot of prepared vegan meats, which I really want to eat them up and use less of them and make my own. And I have made my own in the past. But then new things come out all the time, and I like to try them. So like the Beyond Chicken or the Impossible Chicken or the different ground veggie meats. But eventually I'll find the kind that I really like, which right now is still the Impossible Burger. And I can get that at Mark's, marked down, and I freeze it right away. Because, so eventually I'll probably just stick with that. But it comes like in 12-ounce little bricks, or you can get the burgers, of course, but the little brick is cheaper than the burgers. And of course you can make your own burgers. But that little brick of veggie grounds, like Impossible Burger, I could probably stretch out for a week's worth of meals. So I have a lot of that still in the freezer here and at my mother's. But I eventually want to eat all that down and buy very little prepared veggie meats. At least that's my plan. So that's kind of where I'm going with all the things that I'm trying to do in this transitional period for me. I'm slowly working on my home, trying to get rid of some things. I'm bringing in new things that I feel are useful to me and getting rid of things that are no longer useful. But again, everything on the cheap. I could have maybe gone out and bought an arrow garden. I was looking at those at Bed Bath & Beyond when Tom and I went there for his curtains. And it was like $150 for a little arrow garden. Well, I can't afford that. So that's why I bought a less expensive garden. I'm sure it'll do the same thing. It might not have all the whistles and bells and the automatic timers and things, but you know, I can write down on a calendar when it's time to feed my little plants. So there again, it's a do-it-yourself, cheaper version, but it's the way that I have to live because of the money I make. And yeah, I could probably go out and maybe get some kind of a job, but for me, that would be very difficult because I do have physical limitations with the arthritis and the fibromyalgia and the bowel issues. You know, it's easier said than done. So that's really not an option for me at this point. But I do everything on the cheap because I have to. I buy cheaper clothes and then I buy accessories to go with them to make them look nice, you know, to dress them up a little bit. I bought my car on the cheap. It was a total, it was a salvage car that they fixed, but I got it for like half of what I would have paid had I bought it brand new or even a year old. So I had to buy a car on the cheap. My plants, tomatoes, you know, DIY, do it on the cheap. Buy a tomato, save the seeds. And yeah, it does take longer to do everything when you live that way. But that's why I said that I have to now, during this transitional period, pick and choose what I can still do and how I'm going to do it. That was one of the reasons why I refreshed my living room, was because the big couch that I had in there that was pretty much worn. I couldn't move it anymore to clean around, so I got 2 chairs instead that are much easier to take care of. And once my other smaller sofa goes, I probably won't replace that. I'm not sure on that yet, but there's some other things that I'd like to get rid of in the living room, because it is kind of crowded in there, but I keep that in there for the dogs. So tell me in the comments below, are you going through a transitional period, and what are some of the things that you're going through, whether you're older or younger, just maybe you just had a baby, or you just got married, or you're setting up a house. You know, what kind of transition are you going through, and how are you getting through it? Because we all like good ideas, and you know, I can't think of everything, and neither can you. So I get a lot of ideas from you guys about what you're doing to transition through things. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know this is kind of a chatty video, but I figured I'm going to be doing leftovers today, which isn't real exciting. I won't be doing much cooking. Actually, I won't be doing any cooking. So I thought we could have a little chat instead. All right, I will be back later with my dinner, and I'll see what I'm going to get into now. If you want to see how I made today's leftover dinner, check out yesterday's video. It's all on there of all the things I used and how I prepared it. All right, let's go see what's in the fridge. Dinner time, day 135. Just having leftovers. My refrigerator is getting too clogged up with cooked things. So I'm going to have my casserole here. I'm going to heat up some of that. It's probably too much for one meal. And then I still have these chicken tenders that I'll reheat in my air fryer. And tonight I'm going to have some of these beets, and I'm going to save the marinade from the pickled beets because it's really good to marinate onions in there, red or sweet or whatever onions you have. And sometimes I put it in my seitan. So that's going to be my dinner tonight. I still have lots of other leftovers. I need to cook up these Brussels sprouts. This is mashed potatoes. I may have a frozen leftover with that tomorrow. But that's it for now. So I will meet you at the stove. Alright, so here is my dinner for tonight. Leftovers from yesterday. Cauliflower and potato mash with squashes and eggplant. Beyond chicken. Can always eat chicken if you eat it, and pickled beets. So there we have it, a quick and easy meal using leftovers. Alright, I'm going to enjoy my meal, and I'm going to wish you an abundant blessings. I love you guys. Be good to yourself, be good to others. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, comment, and like. Thanks for watching.